Hello learners, welcome to Data Science for Beginners using AI Assistants, where we use ChatGPT and Google Colab to learn data science. No prior coding experience required. Hello, my name is Dr. Vishwas Kukreti and I'm here to bring the data science to you. To begin with, first quickly recap what we did in previous sessions. We used ChatGPT to produce code. In the next sessions, we understood how we can use Google Colab, what is Google Colab, and how we can run code in Google Colab. We also understood if there is an error in our code, how we can debug that code using ChatGPT, which is our AI assistant tool. Now, let's begin understanding data in the data science. So today we begin with our module 2.1, which is descriptive statistics. Now, to understand descriptive statistics, first let us understand what exactly is statistics. So, statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, and understanding numbers from the world around us. It's not just about organizing and understanding or simply understanding. Statistics is the science of collecting, organizing, and then understanding numbers from the world around us. It helps us make sense of large amounts of information by finding patterns and trends. As we had seen in our previous sessions, the amount of data in our natural systems is huge. If we have to make decisions, we need to get one central number which describes the entire data. So think statistics as a way to turn confusing data into clear answers. This is how you can use numbers for clear data science. Now, why do you need statistics in daily life? Let's take an example. A vegetable vendor uses statistics when he calculates average daily sales to decide how much stock to buy, which is what we saw in our previous problem, where we saw our person Raju getting how many cups of milk to sell on Saturday. We can also use statistics. We also use statistics when we see our ASHA workers to track how many children in a village get vaccinated. Similarly, your mobile recharge data usage summary is a statistic showing you where your data went. So, statistics is what is all about numbers. It's the science of finding patterns and trends. Now, why do we need statistics in data science? To be frank, data science is statistics itself. So, data science uses statistics to find hidden insights in large datasets. The amount of numbers can be huge. The number of rows in a dataset could be in billions or even trillions. We need some methodologies or frameworks to understand what those numbers mean. Hence, without statistics, we cannot understand whether our machine learning model or whether our decision making model is working well or not. So, statistics is the foundation on which all data analysis and predictions are built. So, if you would see on the screen, it says statistics, data analysis, and machine learning. So, to understand data analysis and further to understand machine learning, first you need to understand statistics. Statistics is the base on top of which every prediction and machine learning model is made. You cannot jump to data analysis or machine learning without understanding statistics. To begin with statistics, let's understand the first and foremost what is descriptive statistics. So, descriptive statistics helps us in summarizing and describing data in simple terms. As we have mentioned, instead of looking at thousands of numbers, we can describe those set of numbers using just few key values. What the descriptive statistics answers is questions like what is a typical value of this data set? What is the center of these numbers and how spread out is our data? So, if you would see on your screen, let me give you an example of descriptive statistics. If in a class we have, let's say 50 students, and each one of those 50 students gets a very different marks in the class. Now, the principal comes and asks the teacher, what is the average mark of your children in your child in your class. So as we have seen average, the class teacher will sum all of those numbers, the marks, and then will divide by the number of students in the class, which will give a typical score of a child in the class. Now it may happen that score, no, any children would not have scored. However, it's an average or a typical score which the entire class gets. Also, you can also talk about spread. What's the minimum number of marks a child got in this particular class? What's the maximum amount of marks a child got in this class? So that talks about spread. So these are the two descriptive statistics frameworks in which we are interested. First is center, which is bringing the entire spread into one point. And the second is to understand how spread out or how far out the data itself is. So two main type of descriptive statistics arise. So the first are called measures of central tendencies. What measures of central tendency do? It tells us the center, right? It tells us the center or the typical value. Similarly, the other type of descriptive stats is measures of spread, which tells you how scattered or how spread out the data is. We will understand measures of spread later. In this session, we'll focus only on central tendency, which is finding the middle or typical value. Now let's understand the first or the most used measure of central tendency, which is called mean. Mean is what most people call as average, and it's the most commonly used way to find the typical value in a data set. Now as we have already seen how do we get an average, we calculate it by adding all the numbers and divide by how many numbers there are. Let's get a real life example to this. If 5 auto rickshaw drivers earned rupees 300, rupees 450, rupees 200, rupees 500, rupees 350 in a day, the mean would tell us the typical earning of a typical rickshaw driver. So it's like asking, if all drivers shared their earnings equally, how much would each get? As you can see, different drivers earn different amount. One rickshaw driver earned only 200 rupees, whereas one earned 500 rupees. So mean would get us the balanced fair share value which we expect every driver to get in a day. Now how can we get to that value? So we need to understand the formula for mean. The formula for mean is pretty simple. The formula says let's divide the sum of all values by the number of values. So as step 1, you add all the numbers together. So let's add all the earnings by the rickshaw drivers. So if we add 300, 450, 200, 500 and 350, we get rupees 1800. And we see we had 5 rickshaw drivers. The second step entails is to divide the sum by how many numbers you have. Since we had 5 drivers, we divide the total amount of 1800 by 5, which gives us the mean rupees 360. Now what does this mean? This means we expect a typical rickshaw driver to earn rupees 360 in a day. If we had not known how much a rickshaw driver earns, we could have said a rickshaw driver earns about the mean of other rickshaw drivers, which in our case could have been 360. Now where does mean in data science is used? It's very important to understand the distinction between of using different measures of central tendency in data science. So where do data scientists use mean? Data scientists use mean to understand the typical behavior in large data sets. For example, mean salary in a company, mean temperature in a city, or mean app usage time. Let's understand with an example mean temperature in a city. When we talk about the city of Delhi having a mean temperature of 25 degrees Celsius, does this mean every locality or sub-locality in Delhi has a temperature of 25 degree? No, it does not. Some localities might have higher temperature, which could be say 30 or 32 degrees Celsius. Some localities could have a lower temperature, let's say 22 or 24. Since it's very difficult to understand or to make decisions based on the different temperature of different sublocalities, we need one number which could explain the temperature of Delhi. So that's what we do. We take all the temperature or the data we have for temperature for all different sublocalities in Delhi, we add them and divide by the number of sublocalities we have. That would give us the mean temperature of the city of Delhi. So what mean does is it gives us a single number. It gives us a single number to represent thousands or millions of data points. Now let's use Python code to calculate mean. Now we go back to our friend ChatGPT and prompt it. How do we prompt it? We ask it to write a Python code to calculate mean of, let's say, this list. So our list is the number of earnings. So it is 300, 450, 200, 500, 350. Python will give us answer instantly using a simple code, and we can run this code in Google Colab and get the result. As we have already seen in previous sessions, this is how we are going to learn data science. We use our AI assistant tool as a tutor. We prompt it, ask our respective question, get the code it produces, the Python code it produces, and then use Google Colab, which is a free resource, to run that code. In our case, we have provided in the daily earnings of the 5 rickshaw drivers we were talking about. Now if you would see, it gives you the Python code. It tells you this is the list. It uses the formula which we saw and then gives the mean earning of the driver. We can then take this code and paste it to Google Colab. So you would see it says numbers 300, 450, etc. The mean value is sum numbers divided by len numbers and print mean value, which gives you 360 rupees. Now we have already seen how do we understand these things. If you have any difficulty in understanding what does sum mean or len mean, you can go back to ChatGPT and ask it to explain what sum does and len does. ChatGPT will tell you sum calculates the summation of all those numbers and len tells you the length of the list. So this is the first measure of central tendency, mean. Now let's quickly go to median and understand the second measure of central tendency. So median is the middle value when we arrange all numbers from smallest to largest. Median divides the data into two equal halves. So 50% halves below and 50% values above. And unlike mean, median is not affected by extremely high or low values. So let's get a real life intuition of where we can use median. Imagine 7 farmers with different land sizes. So we have farmers who have land sizes of 1 acre, 2 acre, 3 acres, 5 acres, 8 acres, 10 acres and 50 acres. Now if you wanted to understand how much a typical farmer occupies land area, if we would have used mean, if you recall, we would have added all of these numbers and then divided by 7. But you would see that would tend towards the 50 acre thing. And however, if we arrange them in order and pick the middle one, that's the median. So the median here is 5, because you would see we have 3 values 1, 2, 3 below 5 and 3 values 8, 10 and 50 above 5. So what does median do? So the median tells us the middle ground. It tells us the middle ground without being affected by the very rich farmer with 50 acres. So median tells you a different kind of intuition or knowledge about your data set. It's unaffected by the weight of the numbers. Now how do we use median in data science? Data scientists use median when data has extreme values. These extreme values are often termed as outliers in data science. What these outliers do is mislead the mean. For example, if in a village one person earned 10 lakhs and 99% earned only rupees 10,000, what do you think the mean would be? It's an exercise to you, because you know how to calculate mean. I ask you to solve this problem. But, and this is my saying, median would give you a better picture of how a typical villager earns in that village. So median is often used in salary analysis, housing prices and health data because it's unaffected by outliers. Now median in data science, as we saw about the villagers, if we do mean, mean tends to weigh towards the size of bigger numbers, right? So we would see for such population which where 99 people earn only rupees 10,000, whereas one villager earn 10 lakh, the mean would be around rupees 19,000. However, the median would be much better intuition of how much a typical villager earns. How would you calculate median? If you get 50 number of people below the median value and you get 50 people who earn more than that value, then the middle value is your median. So here your median value is rupees 10,000. So what does the median tell you? It tells you the typical villager earns rupees 10,000, not rupees 19,000, which mean would have told you. Now let's repeat this exercise in similarly what we used for mean. Let's ask ChatGPT, let's prompt ChatGPT to write a Python code to find median of this list. So our prompt is something like this: write Python code to find median of this list, and then we provide it a list. Now you see we only use square brackets here because square brackets denote something called a list in Python. If you want to understand what list is and why do we use square brackets from them only, you can again go to ChatGPT and ask it to explain lists in Python. Use it as your tutor and understand the concepts of Python. So again, let's get back to median and understand what our ChatGPT, our median problem is. So we have asked ChatGPT to write a Python code to find median of this list. What Python is going to do, Python is going to arrange this number and pick the middle one automatically, and it will give you a very simple code that will work in Google Colab. So as you see, it gives you a Python code which you can copy and paste it in Google Colab to get the median answer. Right now, it can also, you can also use to ask median, since your median depends whether your list has even number of components or odd number of components. So you can even use ChatGPT to explain it in much better details. Right, so again you can see on your screen ChatGPT explains it very in large detail, so you can understand what happens when the number of components is even and what happens to median when the number of components is odd. So again, the concept is use ChatGPT like a tutor. If you do not understand anything, do not be shy, do not be afraid. It does not get tired of explaining things to you. So go on forward and ask of any explanation, whether it belongs to data science, statistics or Python from ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure it will point you towards the right direction. Now you can also see the code we have for thing. Right, so this is the median for different odd list and even list. Now let's get to the third measure of central tendency, which is called mode. So mode is the value that appears most frequently in the data set. So or mode is the number which appears most frequently. So it tells you what is the most common or most popular. A data set can have one mode, multiple modes, or no mode at all. So mode you can consider if you talk about clothing sizes. So what do you think mode of a clothing size would be? So you have different clothing sizes from extra small to small, medium, large, extra large to double extra large. So if by an intuitive reasoning you can say the most number of people wear size medium. So similarly, the mode for clothing sizes would be the most frequent value, which is here is the medium size. So mode tells us the most common or the most popular value in the data set. Now let's get a real life intuition of what exactly do we mean by mode. In a tea stall, if a owner tracks daily customers, let's say he gets 50 customers in first week, 60 in second, 50 in third, 70, 50, 80 and 50 in corresponding weeks, then the mode is 50 because that numbers appear most often. Now what does that tell us? It tells us the most typical or most common number of customers. So it will tell us on an average, like 50 customers are often found in a week in his tea stall. The most frequent number of customers is 50. Let's also understand how we can use mode in data science, or where do we see mode in data science. So as I've mentioned and given the example of clothing sizes, mode is useful for categorical data. For example, most popular product, or the most common diagnosis, or the most frequent complaint. Let's take another example. In a mobile shop, which phone model sells the most? That would be a mode. So what does mode helps us understand? Mode helps us understand businesses what is most preferred by customers. For example, if we know a particular mobile is bought much more than any other mobile, or the frequency of sale of a particular mobile brand is much more higher, the business owner would keep that much more stocks of that brand of mobile. So it helps businesses understand, or it uses understand what is mostly preferred by customers. Now let's get to our implementation part and see how we can use Python to calculate mode. Again, we use our AI assistant tool, which is ChatGPT. And like what we have done for mean and median, we ask ChatGPT to write a Python code to find mode of this list. So if you see this list, we have a list which has numbers 50, 60, 50, 70, 50, 80 and again 50. So what will Python do? As we have talked about the logic of mode, Python program will count which number appears most and then tell us. So it's a simple code that you can run in Google Colab. You can see the code on your screen. We ask ChatGPT and it returns an answer. Again, we press on the button right hand side, copy code, go to our Google Colab and paste it and hit the play button, which is on the left side, the run button. Once we run it, it will print the mode, and it's very easy to see, since 50 was the most repeated value in the list, that's the mode for this particular list. So if you would also see, this is some new keywords, some new knowledge about Python. So it says from collections import counter and then uses counter to calculate the mode. I would again encourage you to go to ChatGPT, paste this code and understand what this particular code does. Do not be afraid, since Google Colab is on a cloud environment, you are not going to break your system. Now let's compare mean, median and mode and understand what these three different measures of central tendency do. So all of these three measures, which is mean, median and mode, measure the center of the data stream, but in very different ways. What does mean do? Mean calculates the mathematical average of the data count, that is sum divided by count. What does median do? Median gets the middle value when the data stream is sorted, whereas mode gets the most frequent value. Now the question arises, when do you use mean, when do you use median and when do you use mode? So you use mean when your data has no extreme outliers and values are fairly balanced. For example, we saw one man earned 10 lakh rupees in a village, whereas others earn only 10,000. So if you would use mean to understand the typical earning of a villager, it will be skewed. So use mean only in places where data has no extreme values. So values must be similar to each other to get a better sense of average. For example, average marks of a student in a class, or average daily temperature. Since average marks of a student in a class are bounded, both minimum bounded and maximum bounded, they cannot have extreme outliers. Similarly, average daily temperatures cannot vary too much. So mean works best for symmetric and normally distributed data. What is normally distributed data is we will see in coming classes. But you understand, mean is the most preferred choice of measure of central tendency when your data has no extreme outliers. Now, when to use median? Use median when your data has outliers or is skewed, or by skewed it is kind of unbalanced. For example, house prices in a city. A very few expensive houses shouldn't affect the typical price of a house. Or wages. Few people earning extremely high should not affect the typical amount another person earns. So median helps us understand, it gives us a better picture when data is not evenly distributed or it's kind of unbalanced. Now let's understand when to use mode. You use mode essentially for categorical data or when you want to know the most common value. For example, most popular size of a shirt sold or the most common blood group in a hospital. So the mode answers the question what is most frequent and not what is average. So it tells you which is the most frequent or which is the most recurring number in your data set. It does not calculate the average. So let's get to a real example now. So we will now work with real data. So let's talk about daily earnings of 15 cycle rickshaw pullers in Varanasi. So as you can see on your screen, we have data which shows the earnings of 15 cycle rickshaw pullers. So it is 150, 200, 180, 220, 150, 300, 150, 190, 210, 150, 250, 180, 150, 200, 400. So consider this real life data with some variation. So you can see some days are good, but some days are bad. Now let's observe the data set. By a cursory observation, we can see rupees 150 appears 5 times. We have one very high value, rupees 400, possibly a very good day for the cycle rickshaw puller. However, most earnings are between rupees 150 to rupees 250 with few high values. Now let's use ChatGPT to calculate the mean, median and mode. As we have been doing for all of our exercises, we prompt ChatGPT to give a Python code which we can then run on Google Colab. So we say write Python code to calculate mean, median, mode for these 15 daily incomes and provide the 15 daily incomes to ChatGPT. ChatGPT is going to write a Python code for us, and again we will run this code in Google Colab to get the answer. So ChatGPT gives us the simple code that we can copy and paste into Google Colab. And the code will calculate both mean, median and mode in few lines. And when we press run, we'll get our answers instantly. So I'll pause for here and expect you to run this code. You will get a code from ChatGPT which I expect you to run on your Google Colab. However, let's discuss what the statistics will tell us. So we would see the mean is rupees 205. What we can say is the mean earning of a person or mean earning on a day is pulled up by the very good day of rupees 400. However, the median gives us the true middle. So half earn more, however, half earn less. And the mode tells us the most typical days earning for most rickshaw pullers. So what we learned today is 3 ways to find the typical value of a data set: mean, median and mode. We understood when to use each measure depending on our data, and we use ChatGPT and Python to calculate these values for real world data quickly and easily. So we will stop here and we will begin our data science journey in the next session. I hope you understood measures of central tendency and how to use ChatGPT and Google Colab. Thank you.